This episode is brought to you by Mortgage Workflow Partners and the Mastering Encompass series, both for users as well as administrators. You can find out all the information about it over at masterengencompass.com. Also, if you'd like to check out what we're doing on YouTube, go ahead and subscribe to the channel using the @MasteringEncompass handle. And make sure you stay up to date on all the information, not just with podcasts, but also video content that we bring to you as often as possible. Now let's get on to the episode. Hey, everybody. Larry Bailey's here with Mortgage Workflow Partners. We've got some folks showing up here. It is Tuesday the 6th at 4 p.m. We meet every week here, Tuesday at 4 p.m. or Thursday, 1 p.m. To ask questions, we've got our resident groupies here, Katie and Amy. Sorry. Hi, Katie. Hi, Amy. I think Katie's on, not Amy yet. How are you doing? So today, I figured we talk about some rebanding stuff. We've got 23.2 coming out this weekend. Hopefully you're well prepared for that. I've shot some walkthroughs, and we're really just here for any open questions about it. If we've got some, great. And if not, I was going to walk through a couple of updates on the Mastering Encompass community, as well as anything else that's happening. So looks like Amy didn't get the invite to join, so we're going to go ahead and get her in the meeting. If you're watching this on replay, go ahead and get over to masterengencompass.com. Make sure you got your Zoom account set up. You can join these meetings live and ask any questions that you have, or you can try to follow along with anything that's coming up. Let's see, we've got somebody who can't get over here, Luba. I'm going to say masteringcompass.com. That should work for Luba. Hey, welcome, Amy. Welcome, Katie. You guys have any questions at all? Or you're just here to observe and play along?
We're just here to play along. But did you know that you can do an avatar now in Zoom?
You can. Your avatar looks so cute.
Isn't that cute?
That is so cute. I don't know if, let's see if everybody else can see that. That is the cutest, I think. I think that's really cute.
Anyway, just a little heads up if you didn't know that about Zoom.
What is the world coming to? What is the world coming to? Anyway, so I did make some changes. Hey, welcome, Kevin. I did make some changes today. If you get over to mortgage.community, this is going to come over eventually just to masterengencompass.com. In any event, it's no longer, you now have to request to join. For those that are already in, nothing changes for you. You'll just come in. For anybody else watching this replay, if you want to participate with some of the live streams, we're eventually going to be moving over into the community. Mostly because I want to make sure people who are watching this stuff actually are the folks that are interacting with the community. And then also, of course, all the updates, everything else. I want to kind of get buried into the community. I don't think it's exploited enough as it could be. And I think there's a lot more that I can add to it over time. So having said that, I'm going to be focusing in on content specifically for administrators, and then also content specifically for sales team, processing team, underwriting, post-closing, and then also secondary. So, I found over the last couple of weeks when I started poking around some different workflows that people are still misusing Encompass because they were never taught. They were really never taught how to do things properly in the sales team. Most of the stuff that's in the sales team that I find has to do with pipeline views, dashboards, reports, not so much reports, but pipeline views, dashboards. And the idea here is that when you when you have a team, if you don't actually spend time to go around looking at what they're physically doing, I think you're missing out on a really big opportunity. And the idea is that you, as an Encompass admin, especially if you're the person that everybody goes to for help, you've got to know what everybody's doing. And although that's probably not in your job description, my job always as an Encompass admin is to be ahead of that curve and making sure that everybody's doing what they're supposed to be doing. I can't tell you how many times I go into an implementation. This just happened over the past couple of months with mortgage workflow partners, where we implemented Encompass for a bank. They were coming off of Point, and some of their staff actually had Encompass experience, tenured experience, like years of experience, and couldn't show me how to properly process a file, or couldn't show me how to properly underwrite a file. That kind of a thing. Even the sales team had some struggles because they're used to working out of either Blend or Simple Nexus. I find a lot of sales folks who don't really interact with Encompass efficiently or effectively. So that's what this is all about. But ultimately, I personally haven't put a lot of information into the community just because I haven't been asked a lot. But as I said in the poster earlier today, over the last year, it's been actually about 15 months, 16 months, when I kind of branded it open for all the mortgage community. Nobody really cared that much. Most people either stuck to the communities they were part of, which I totally respect and get, or they really didn't have a need for it. So I'm going to just, I pulled away all my focus from every other community, and I'm putting all the energy into here. So any new classes that are coming out, any new content that's coming out, all new updates, the walkthroughs, the live, all that stuff is going to be in here. So the point, my hope is that as things happen over the next couple of years, it's going to become increasingly quicker on the releases that are coming out. I think ICE is going to continue to do a breakneck speed job of rolling out updates, both for desktop version as well as for web version. And my goal is to make this community a good spot to come for resources and information for me, for mortgage workflow partner clients, and for anybody else that's in the community that wants to help. Oh, let me admit folks. Sorry, Luba. Sorry, Melissa. Sorry, Luba, for keeping you in the waiting room. I got to take a peek up every now and then.
That's okay. I was waiting.
Your avatar on like Amy did. Did you know you could do avatars now? I know you're not you'll have to check that out. Oh, wait, Amy. Oh, there. Thank you, Amy. Isn't Amy so cute? You're on mute, Luba.
That's what all the boys say.
Nice. Hey, so thanks for coming, Melissa, Kevin, Luba, Katie, and Amy already tapped out. They said they didn't have any questions. Did you guys have any questions you want to talk about?
No.
No? Okay. 23.2 is rolling out. Have you guys had a chance to look at or plan for anything? Or are you guys just basically going to hit it on Monday and figure out what kind of, is not meshing really well with your current settings?
We went through just your videos and stuff and went through everything, and I just don't see anything for us that's really going to affect us that much. So we're just going to hope there's no fires. And
all right, this is gonna get distracting.
Started the trend.
So wait, is anybody doing ARMs? Because the thing that stood out for me is just going from a 3 to a 5 decimal point for the ARM index for the SOFR. So is that not?
We do have that notated. Yes, we are going to go to a 5.
So how are you going to deal with some files that are on 3?
Well, we don't have any current ARMs, so
well,
it works out well.
That's cheating.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's good. And as far as the other updates, I went through in the release notes, there wasn't anything that really stood out huge. That was a big concern of mine as well on there. So I don't know if we want to go back through that. Guess I could stop sharing here. As far as other things that are happening out this week, besides the release coming out on Saturday, I will share, or I will ask a question again for those that are on here. Reporting database. How long is your reporting database taking to update? Do you have any idea?
5, 6
2.5
hours.
hours.
5 or 6 hours, Amy, what'd you say?
2.5.
2.5. Are you running?
We had it split. Yeah, we had it split into 4. It has the best thing I don't know who suggested that at some point. Was best thing ever.
So here's what we're talking about for those that have no idea what we're talking about. If your reporting database update is taking longer than, and I don't know what the official rule is, but I'm going to say 24 hours. If you contact ICE and ask them to install multi-thread into your reporting database, and they allow for that, it is a complete game changer. Do you remember what it was before you went to multi-thread, Amy?
Yeah, ours was only taking about 8 or 9 hours.
Okay.
And that was too much because a lot of, as an admin, a lot of times you make a change and you need it right away. I don't want to wait 8 hours, but if I do it early enough in the morning, I can have it in 2.5 now. So that was a life-changing thing.
Yeah.
Getting that down to 2.5.
So I had a situation with a database that was taking over 24 hours, mostly because although they only had about 4,500 fields, a large majority of those fields were custom calcs. And apparently the reporting database is not really well equipped for that type of load or that type of situation in the coding. And so, yeah, it went from over 24 hours for this particular database, it went to under 2. So it was literally a life-changing event for these folks who hadn't been able to update the reporting database in over a year because nobody was able to keep, because they do all virtual environments. So they could never keep their virtual environment active for that long of a period of time. It would always crap out on them. So because people got to sleep. So in any event, yeah, that was a big deal. That came up recently. Another thing that came up recently on the idea of reporting database. I went over it kind of separately last week with KPIs. So is anybody on the meeting right now? Is anybody struggling with or have any questions about best methods for writing custom field calcs and the methodologies behind how to do that effectively, especially with field modifiers? That's something I see a lot of folks not really having always really knowing about or having skill sets to get through sometimes. So what I'm talking about primarily is in custom fields. And again, I'm bringing this up because for the very first time in 16 years, I found an environment where they used every single CUST field that there was, so all 100. I had never, ever seen that before because most people are not doing it that way. They'll go to the CX fields. And I've said publicly before that I just personally don't believe that the CUST fields are something to be used currently. You should always create your own CX field. So when I did that, when I went through that conversation, what I found was a couple of admins really hadn't gone through and written out any custom code for field calcs on that, and I wanted to just kind of bring that up, just again because we're going through these meetings and these topics are always important for somebody who's watching. So on screen, a couple of things up in here. Obviously, in custom field calc, there's no, in this particular block, there's no then and there's no and if, right? That's not part of custom field code. This works more like Excel, if anybody's ever written Excel, and which I don't do. I don't really live in that world. Typically, I'll create a custom field, and on the community, Jody Sims and I went back and forth just for a couple things, where I'm like, yeah, you don't even need Power BI. You can do this. But he did mention that, you know, sometimes you can write some in the reporting tab, you can create an Excel result of fields that are in the report. And that's true, but I still say I always say come back into the custom field, create a new custom field, because if you create the value within that custom field, not only can you put it on the report, but you can also put it on a dashboard or a pipeline view, which is my preference anyway. I always like to keep this data live. So in this one particular example, just want to draw out that you're still going to make sure that you always start your custom field calc with your if and your open parentheses. And as a reminder, everything between that first open parentheses and that first comma is your statement, right? So the statement that we're making here is, does field 1401, which is the loan program field, does that contain the characters that are shown here exactly? So just as a reminder, Encompass is a stupid program. It's just ones and zeros, and it's going to do exactly what you tell it to do. So if you create a loan program that has a space between the ampersand and you ask it to evaluate that field for something that doesn't exist, and the answer is going to be false. This is true for case sensitivity. This is true for character spacing. I can't tell you how many times I've seen people put a space before the first letter in the loan program or a loan template, and they go to write a rule and the rule doesn't work, and they drive themselves nuts, only to realize that there's an extra character in there they didn't realize. So if that first part of your statement is true, then the result's going to be between your first comma and your second comma. And a lot of times this is either a value. In this particular case, we're telling this custom field to equal this particular new HUD field. And so this can be a statement, meaning this can be a text field, this can be a string, this can be a date, whatever it is that the custom field is set up to be in terms of the format, right? So that's another part in here that I try to remind folks, is to make sure that your custom field value that you're inserting here is the type of field that you have the custom field to be identified as. Classic examples that I see happen where these custom fields fail in the calculation is the data being interpreted for output is not consistent with the data type that the custom field is aligned for. Good examples of that are date. So if your output is date time, it won't go into date, obviously. Those kinds of things. So the answer here, so the answer is if this is true, then the custom field equals this value, and the calculation stops. If for some reason this statement is false, it runs to the end of that second comma and it looks for the next step. And in Encompass, you can run to the next step by going to the next line of code and starting that if sequence all over again. And I've run this down pretty far. Technically, I'm not really sure what the limit is. I'm sure there's a limit somewhere, but in realistic terms, in real life, it usually doesn't run that far. Hopefully you're using a code editor, whether it's Notepad++ or Visual Studio Code or something. You're creating this sequence where you're evaluating a statement. If the first statement is false, you can run to the next statement, and so on and so on and so on. And ultimately, remember, you're trying to enter a field into CX into this field, that CX dot whatever, and the value of that CX dot whatever is what you're saying is true, or ultimately what your false answer is here. The last thing I want to speak to is when you are writing your code. Another reason why I like to use a Visual Basic editor is if you've got it set up properly, you can see the coloring of your parentheses to making sure that you've got enough parentheses filling in to match your pieces here. So one of the things that hopefully you're seeing right away is that I've got a parentheses for the first line, for line 30, for line 32, for line 34, and for line 36, but I don't have one for line 38. So if I were to throw this statement directly into Encompass, I would expect a validation error because it is missing one more parentheses for this. I'm sorry, actually, I'll try that again. So I'm missing one for 38 here. So if I try to throw this in, it would throw me an error. Now that I've got this in here, now it will go through to the whole line. There we go. So that this sequence will be able to be put in. If you're running into an error, Lender Toolkit sells a service. It's $800 a month for their Code Wizard. A lot of folks love Code Wizard. I found that it can be helpful for a lot of folks who maybe have Visual Basic syntax challenges and they want to try and run things. It's also good because it offers a sandbox mode, that kind of a thing. But truthfully, there's a ton of administrators, myself included, who don't need third-party tools just to figure out Visual Basic syntax. You can leverage a lot of things inside of Encompass to help build that Visual Basic syntax. When we go through and look at Encompass, and I'm going to bring up an example of one here in 1 second. A lot of times I'll go through and cheat to build out that syntax, looking for certain kinds of ways to build in the Visual Basic code. So let me just throw this up on screen, go back to sharing. So within many business rules, you can come into this editor. I will say that this editor can throw some results in that can be problematic if you were trying to free type them. It's gotten fewer and fewer over the years, but if for some reason you use this advanced condition editor to help you build out your VB editor here to use, it is it's not totally surprising, but again, it's becoming fewer and fewer. Typically, it involved around the syntaxes of using milestone dates. So make sure that you're using your log.ms. whatever. And you can find those syntax, those proper syntax values in the reporting database of all places, like we were talking about earlier. So those are just some things I thought would be clever to share, and I thought it'd be timely just because that's what I came across this week. Since our last meeting, specifically on the custom field calcs. Anybody on the meeting have any questions or any things to add? You're missing your parenthesis on here. Yeah, that's thank you very much, Amy. I appreciate that. Cool. I think for
No, the one right before the contain, right after the word contains on that line. I just thought if anybody else is copying and pasting and using this for later, like I am, you may confuse them. That's why it was not triggering the area.
There we go.
Sorry.
Thank you very much.
Huh?
Thank you. So that was just one piece I wanted to share today, and it's part of the drama of being an admin. There's a lot of places to look for support, and a lot of times it takes collaborative efforts to get through. So if you're out there on your own as an Encompass admin and you're feeling like you're all alone, that kind of a thing, I get it. Been there, done that. Good news is you do have the Encompass forum that's also manned by ICE technicians. And I will say that if you do have a situation where Encompass is not behaving as you expect, I would always encourage you to open up a case and then call or chat. I always say open up a case first and then call or chat. But if for whatever reason you think there's anything that I can certainly help with at Mortgage Workflow Partners, feel free to give us a call or an email or a text or a chat. There's all kinds of ways to hit us up. So for those that came today, last round, any questions, any topics, anything that you want to go over?
I'd add into your parentheses thing there.
Mhm.
You know, if you have a custom field that's giving you the word approve or approves, make sure when you put that into your rule, you use the same spelling.
Nah, that's true too, right? So the result. Yeah.
I did that recently, and it was like I couldn't figure out why this rule wasn't working. And when I went back and looked, it was like I had it approved in one place and approve in the other. And one of those stupid errors that you just kick yourself for. But
You know, I went through, I had not, obviously not the exact same thing, but I went through a similar situation. And Kevin, did you discover that gap? Like, how did you discover the gap? You just went back and looked at the code or something different?
yeah, I just went back and looked at the code. I mean, basically the custom fields and the calculations weren't working as expected. And so went back through and, you know, just started looking at everything. And what did I miss? Did I miss a comma? Did I miss a what? You know, because Encompass didn't flag it as an invalid code.
Right.
And then just, you know, through looking back through it, I realized that in one place I put it without a D, and in the other place I put it with a D. And like I say, it just drove me nuts for, you know, 30 minutes or so. So I figured it out.
I was asking because you're a little bit more, the way that I typically will run that is, and it might be the long way, but I'll go into input form builder and I'll put the custom field into a dev form to kind of see what the value is. I did that when I was going through the KPI project last week I was talking about. Mostly because it was field 2025 is a string field, which I didn't realize until after I went and looked at it. I always thought it was a date time field because it's file started, but it's actually a string field. So all my equations were failing from the jump start. But that's one of the things that I would encourage everybody, if you're having a problem, if you can look at the code and you can figure it out through the code, God bless. For me, I'm a little bit less effective that way. I find if I go and put the fields onto a custom input form to look at the value, especially if it's like a multi-layered numerical calculation, that's where I usually get stuck, Kevin, is something's not working because some calculation is off somehow and I can't see the calculation. So I usually put it on a custom field on an input form.
Yeah, these weren't mathematical. These were, you know, basically if these 10 fields say approve, then
approve. This
says approve. If not, then it's decline. And I was getting a decline even though my field said approved. So
cool. Yeah. All right. Hey, these are lessons that I think everybody goes through. And so it's hard not to make some mistakes. I think you know, if you never had one of these things happen, it's I don't think you've been working long enough.
We're doing crazy enough stuff or something.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. All right. Thank you very much, Kevin. Thank you, Luba, for coming. And Melissa, I think for Thursday, we'll see what comes up. But I'll come up with some more topics and see if we can get some more folks to join us. But always appreciate everybody showing up. And so last pass though, Luba, nothing else, right? Melissa, nothing else before we break?
How do you feel about updating values in a dropdown, like changing their names?
Oh, you mean like in a custom field dropdown?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, well, it's a problem. It's a real problem because you're going to immediately change those values in the loan files.
But only those loan files that get opened, right? It wouldn't just automatically do it everywhere.
Correct. It's only if, right, because loan fields will only update based upon interaction with the loan file. So loan open could be a program too. It doesn't have to be just a person.
Right. So
but you can yeah, that's a really dangerous. I had one I have a situation with where they have people in a drop down and those people no longer work at the company. And so the client wants to like update the custom field, and I'm like, this is why you have to move to roles. You can't put people in a drop down. because you can never change that value because if that value existed in any file in the past and you remove that value, that loan's blank.
Right.
So Luba, you said something though, you said, but only if they open the loan. I don't know if it's true.
You think
Actually,
it'll just blink it out even if the loan's not touched?
I want to say, because I literally just went over this past week over this, again, this drop down thing. And when I did the testing, when I was working with a partner, John, and when I updated the field, John was sharing screen and he refreshed his pipeline and the value was gone. Now that I think it through, I don't think you need to go into the file. I think the loan will have the data disappear.
Yeah, so definitely don't do it.
Is that only if you remove a value? Can you add a value and not hurt it?
Yeah, only if you remove it, right, Kevin? So if the field, if the field contained, if the loan file had a field that contained a specific value in the dropdown, and then you removed it, that value no longer exists in the field for that file. To Luba's point, it would be like, it feels like it should only recalculate because it's a custom field, but that's not the experience I saw. Experience I saw was when the field value, when the field had a value removed that the loan file had in that field, it was gone. It didn't exist anymore. So yeah, I would be really careful about that, Luba.
Yeah, I wasn't gonna do it, but I was thinking about it. We wanted to change the way we were naming things, but I don't think we're gonna do it. We're just gonna leave it alone.
This is where I don't know the situation, but this is where you if you're in a box, you might have to create a new field to capture the values of your old field, but give you flexibility in your new field. I've done that before.
Yeah. No, I think we're just gonna leave it alone, I think.
Or you can just leave it alone, yeah.
And just going forward, use the new naming.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know the full situation, but yeah, I suppose. Okay. Anything else?
I have one question that
Yeah,
I'm not sure if anybody's gonna relate to. Is anyone here managing more than just Encompass? And how are you balanced? If you are, how are you balancing all of the way that you attend to all of your different systems?
You mean like different LOS?
Well, yeah, no. So at Encompass, I also manage our FICS mortgage servicing system. We self-service all of our loans. And recently I've also taken over our Meridian Link consumer LOS.
Well, you just don't have to sleep, Melissa, obviously.
Yeah, and we just went through a core conversion, so I'm also the lending go-to for the core management as well. But it's really starting to get to be a lot, and I'm not sure how common it is to manage anything outside of just Encompass.
So
like, how common is this?
So we don't quite manage as much as that, but we manage Encompass, our POS, and like vendors logins and stuff like that, and we do that through a ticketing system and just have it all flow into that ticketing system, and then we first come first serve kind of thing. That's how we handle it, but it's not quite like bigger systems that you have, so I don't know, like priorities and all that.
Yeah, I think Melissa, number one, the rule of thumb is 99 Encompass admins out of 100 are not just full-time Encompass admins. There are an extraordinary amount of admins that have other responsibilities, maybe not at the level you're describing for the significance of what's involved. But it is extraordinarily common to have more than one job as an Encompass admin, to which I've said for the last 15 years, it's It can be very, very stressful. It can be very overwhelming, and it can be very detrimental to the organization that's leaning on Encompass, especially during volatile code changes. So like 23.2 isn't that bad, but if you've been administering Encompass more than 5 years, there's been some really wicked stuff that's happened in the past that caused a lot of stuff to break in customizations or in other technologies that connected. So it can be very overwhelming for a single person to do that.
Yeah, I can't imagine having to go through like something like the ERLA transition again, with the weight of, 4 different systems, all needing attention. So just any tips or tricks or
Yeah, I think
management anyone has, if you want to throw them my way.
So
Any
it's
secrets?
the secret. I think Luby shared a biggest secret, which is to document what needs to be done and get guidance from your business leadership and prioritization. I think part of what happens with companies is they lose the ability to understand the volume of support needs. I can show you a company that has 100 users and gets like 2 or 3 tickets a day, and I can show you a company with 50 users that gets 12 tickets a day or 13 or 15 tickets a day.
Yeah.
So it's not a one-to-one. I know some companies are like, oh, you need 1 Encompass admin per 50 people, and I'm like, well, that depends on a lot of things. So, but yeah, I think number one suggestion is exactly what Luba said, is you need to make sure you have a way to document what is happening for which platform. That would be my first suggestion, and you can use something as simple as Excel to track that, albeit that's very labor intensive.
Mm-hmm.
Do you guys have a ticketing system?
Well, yes, kind of.
Okay.
But it goes directly to our technology department, and I am not in our technology
Right,
department.
and you're not connected, right? That's another little turn. So I can tell you that in the past I've used something called Smartsheet when I've had to manage. Do you have Smartsheet at your disposal?
Yes.
Great. So the part that's tough is again segmenting out what's happening and for where. It doesn't make time magically appear. But what I've found, speak for the people who aren't here, what I found is that when you're backed up against resource load issues, because you've got too much coming in and not enough going out, so that it's an imbalance, the only way business can know what's going on is to document what's happening. And the business has to feel the pain of not having the ability to get the things done that are important because of resource constraints. And it's not a perfect answer. There's no magic silver bullet, but I can tell you this, over my tenure as an Encompass admin and as business owner and as, telemarketer, right? Processor, I run every job in the lending industry. The one thing I've always been able to explain to people, even when they don't want to hear it, is, hey, listen, if you want this thing done, I can do it for you, but what are these other 5 things do you want me not to do?
Sure. Okay.
And I can't give them that.
I don't like saying that. That's not, it's not in my nature to say I can't do something, because I sure can, but
which one first?
I can see the value of saying that out loud. I won't like it, but I can see the value of it.
Yeah. It's again, and as mortgage workflow partners, like, we have resource constraints, and God help us if we had every client asking for something all at the same time. Like, I can't say to client X, like, hey, sorry, I can't do your work because client Y is there. Like, that's not something I can say, but I can say to client X, hey, listen, there's 30 things that you want us to do. Which 5 do you want us to work on first?
Yeah.
And that's a very real and reasonable conversation. And I think most people are reasonable And I think if you can give them an idea of what's going on, I think you can find that they'll tell you, okay, Melissa, I want you to work on these things first, and then those other things.
Yeah, that reasonable port is sometimes questionable, but
It's always helpful to explain where things are. Like I said, I think I can think of a few circumstances where where it got to be really, really hot. And the reason why the situation got really, really hot is because people were being unreasonable, but it got figured out. I think that's what happens mostly. People will realize that, hey, listen, it's all documented. Here's what's going on. Larry's not being a jerk. He's just stretched. That's it. So what do we want him to fix? What do we want him to fix next?
all right, well, thank you.
You're welcome. I'm glad you asked that question. Thank you. I'm sure, honestly, that I've worked with literally hundreds of different companies and thousands of admins over the years. And your question is extraordinarily common,
Oh,
unfortunately.
good. At least I'm not alone.
Yeah, truthfully, you're not alone. And anybody watching this, I'm sure there's like, if there were people watching this live, and they were probably giving thumbs up. The importance for you and anybody watching this is to document what's going on and to come up with a plan. When somebody's like, hey, why isn't this thing done yet? And say, well, it's because I'm working on these other 12 things. Here's a list of 12, which you told me you wanted to get these 12 done in this order. Do you want me to pivot?
Yeah. Sounds
All right.
good. Well, thank you.
All right. Good luck.
Thanks.
Okay. And if you have other questions, again, we're here every Tuesday at 4, every Thursday at 1. And then we do our monthly with like a bigger community thing on next Wednesday. That's at 2:00.
Sounds good.
So
You keep doing these monthlies when I'm not around.
it's on purpose, Luba.
I know.
It's really on purpose.
I won't be around on Thursday. I'll be golfing. So
Oh,
See
fine.
that? Awesome. I'm happy for you. All right, we're gonna wrap it up. Thank you very much for coming, Melissa, and for your questions, and Luba for yours, and good luck to both of you. And if I can ever help, let me know.
Thank you.
thank you.
See you now.
Bye.